The Fed has undershot its inflation target of 2% since 2012. Why do you think that is?
This has been called a mystery that inflation's been low. I'm not sure it's as much of a mystery as people think. What people are calling a mystery is the fact that unemployment is pretty low and inflation hasn't gone up. But that correlation has not been a very good one historically, and I think if you look empirically at the data, it really doesn't hold up, especially in the last 25 years. So what people are surprised about is that labor markets are doing as well as they are, and that's not leading to inflation, but that's not surprising to me. In the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of volatility in inflation and output and unemployment. And that's because the central bank did not have an inflation target, and inflation expectations could move around wherever based on the whim of the moment, and you saw that in the data, and so you got a lot of volatility during that period. A lot of that calmed down as we went through the 80s and got into the 90s, and I like to use 1995 as a cutoff point. That's when inflation in the US started to be low and stable around 2%. The committee had an implicit 2% inflation target, and over the next 10 years, or really ever since then, we've been very close to 2% inflation compared to the earlier era. So what inflation targeting did, both in the US and around the world, was it made inflation very stable and much less volatile around 2%. So now when you go to try to relate inflation statistically to unemployment, it looks like there isn't very much of a relationship, which is probably true. Inflation targeting has become the norm. And that means that it's inflation expectations that's the key variable, not the unemployment rate or the gap between current unemployment and some concept of the natural rate of unemployment. So is it really a mystery? Inflation expectations are a little bit low compared to where we'd like them to be, relative to our target, and that seems to help explain why actual inflation is low.